Hello and welcome to Business Incorporated. It's still the last trading day of 2025, and we see the markets are moving along just fine. Here's what's coming up on the show. In Kenya, we see petrol stations are resisting a new tax invoice system ahead of the deadline. And we see Ghana, they've paid off a $709 million Eurobond debt ahead of schedule. And Egypt is set to build a 5 million container terminal in Djibouti. It's great to have you join us. I'm Ladi Williams. Let's get a check on what's playing out with the markets that we track now. We're seeing the oil market edging lower, just like earlier in the day, and set to fall more than 15% over the course of 2025 as oversupply concerns that grew in the year marked by wars, and we see right there $61.32 a barrel. It's near flat at this point. WTI crude, same thing, $57.97 a barrel. Brent crude is down about 18%, the most substantial annual percentage decline since 2020, and they're on track for a third straight year of losses, their longest ever losing streak. That's talking about Brent and WTI. The futures fell about 20 cents to $61.13 a barrel. All markets had a strong start, to 2025 when former President Joe Biden ended his term by imposing tougher sanctions on Russia, disrupting supplies to top buyers. That's China and India. Now we see the war in Ukraine intensified when Ukrainian drones damaged Russian energy infrastructure, and disrupted Kazakhstan's oil export. So we've seen all of that play into the oil market in 2025. So not much a great price performance right there for the oil market, but even better. Let's look at metals now. Metals, that's been a better story for most of 2025. But the trade today, we're seeing a pullback. It's right on the screen today. Spot silver pulling back a big 8.19%. So it looks like we're seeing profit taking, to end the year at this point. But, looking at all these metals there, we see spot gold this year up over 50%, spot silver pushing almost 100%. Then we see palladium, that's done pretty well too. Platinum, over 100% gain this year. A big pullback there, 9.34%. So today, we're seeing profit taking right there for the metals market. So that's the story there. Let's move it on to Kenya now. We see hundreds of petrol stations across Kenya defying the Kenya Revenue Authority's deadline. And that deadline is to adopt a new electronic tax invoice system, raising serious concerns right there in the country about enforcement, business viability and potential disruptions at fuel outlets nationwide. According to industry insiders, nearly all small to medium-sized fuel retailers have yet to comply with the KRA's directive, which requires integration with the electronic tax invoice management system for fuel stations. And that's supposed to be today, 31st of December, 2025. The United Energy and Petroleum Association, which represents many independent fuel dealers, say that about 98% of petrol stations remain non-compliant, largely due to the high costs and technical challenges associated with installing and maintaining the ETIMS infrastructure. Meanwhile, still in Kenya, the Central Bank of Kenya, they've officially licensed 42 additional digital credit providers, marking a major expansion of the regulated digital lending industry in Kenya. This latest approval brings the total number of licensed digital lenders in Kenya to 195, bolstering oversight and formalizing access to digital loans for millions of consumers. The CBK, they said the new licenses were granted under Section 59, Subsection 2 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, following a rigorous review process that assessed applicants' business models, governance structures, and consumer protection framework. So definitely, according to the regulator, the move is part of ongoing efforts to strengthen consumer protection, enhance compliance, and clean up the fast-growing digital lending sector, which has seen, increasing demand for mobile loans delivered via smartphone apps and USSD platforms. And in West Africa, the government of Ghana, they settled a $709 million Eurobond obligation ahead of its scheduled maturity date. The Ministry of Finance confirmed this in a statement today. The payment was completed on December 30, 2025, marking a significant milestone in the country's ongoing efforts to stabilize its economy and manage public debt effectively. According to the finance minister, the early settlement is part of a broader debt management and economic recovery strategy undertaken since Ghana's debt restructuring began. The payment brings the total Eurobond servicing in 2025 to about $1.4 billion, including two earlier payments of $349.52 million, each made under the terms of the restructuring memorandum. I was in North Africa, Egypt signed a key agreement to develop a new container terminal in Djibouti with a planned capacity of 5 million 20-foot equivalent units, marking a major expansion of maritime infrastructure and deepening economic cooperation between the two nations. The Djibouti Ports and Free Zones Authority hosted a signing ceremony this week that included multiple commercial agreements with Egyptian partners focused on energy, logistics, port infrastructure. One of the central deals, a memorandum of understanding, paves the way for the construction of the massive 5 million two-container terminal with a 1,450-meter quay and 18-meter draft, designed to significantly boost Djibouti's capacity as a strategic transshipment and logistics hub on the Red Sea. And we see Turkey. They've officially begun construction of a major space port facility in Somalia, marking a significant milestone in the country's national space program and bilateral cooperation with Somalia. And the move comes shortly after the completion of the feasibility and design studies for the project. And we see the Industry and Technology Minister confirmed that the first phase of the construction work has started on land allocated to Turkey in Somalia under a bilateral cooperation agreement signed by both nations. He highlighted Somalia's geographic advantages near the equator and its coastal location conditions that are technically ideal for satellite and rocket launches. All right, so now let's see how some of the billionaires in the world, how they performed. The new data shows that it was a remarkable year for the world's wealthiest in 2025. The 500 richest individuals collectively saw their fortunes swell by an unprecedented $2.2 trillion, fueled by soaring markets, according to Bloomberg Billionaire Index. Surprisingly, around 25% of these gains were pocketed by just 8 of the world's billionaires. And so we look at the data there. For US and Canada, they had a big chunk there, $1.1 trillion. That's what the billionaires right there in US and Canada added. So they're taking half of this. Then we come to the other side. We see African billionaires added $21.9 billion. That's for Africa. Middle East and Russia, $39.3 billion. That's what the billionaires added. Latin America, big, $159.5 billion. Then we see Europe, $386.5 billion. That's what the billionaires in Europe added to their wealth. Asia, and they are showing you there, $550.7 billion. So a total gain there, $2.26 trillion. That's what all the billionaires in this world, that's what they made in 2025. And you see just Africa, just about $21.9 billion added by African billionaires. So hopefully we get more billionaires, maybe they add more money, and maybe we get more equality, in the world in 2026. All right, let's get to our next our conversation now. Small and medium-sized enterprises are the backbone of Africa's economy, driving innovation, creating jobs and fueling growth. But building sustainable MSMEs, that comes with, unique challenges, access to finance, market reach, and a capacity building. And now explore how entrepreneurs and policymakers are working together to empower African MSMEs, for long-term success. And see how the MSMEs have performed in 2025. Joining me for this conversation, I have Obianuji Onyekure, Chief Financial Officer, Manifold Computers Limited. It's great to have you on the show. Compliments of the season.
Thank you, Ladi, for having me here.
So what would you say were the biggest, challenges for African MSMEs, in 2025? What do you think stopped them from achieving, sustainability, and growth in 2025?
Thank you, Ladi, for that question. I was really excited to see the growth that the billionaires of the world were able to add in 2025. And that made me ask myself question that we had MSMEs. Anyways, the numbers are not out, so I can't really speak whether they achieve this level of growth or not. But looking at what we see as we interact with these businesses closely, now the challenges that they face, many of them, when you speak with them, they usually would think that finance is their problem. But when you dig deeper, you see that it's access to market that is actually the challenge. And interestingly, that gap is also being filled through capacity development and also through making sure that they are actually understanding the market that they serve by becoming more innovative, doing better marketing, communicating the value that they bring. So the top of their list, if you ask them, they will say it's finance, but digging deeper, we see that it's a structure problem and it's also an innovation and marketing challenges. Because once you are able to communicate, package the value that meets needs, and then you are able to have a formalized structure for your business, you can actually get access to finance. Truly, access to finance is a challenge, but it's not the #1 challenge from our own assessment.
All right, so, definitely bringing it down to Nigeria, tomorrow is a countdown now. The new tax laws take effect from January 1st, 2026. In your view, is this going to add, wind to the sail for MSMEs in Nigeria, or are you seeing, confusion? What are you seeing with the new tax laws coming up?
So what we'll see is that the masses, the MSMEs in particular, are actually quite confused. There's been a lot of communication out there from the fiscal committee, but the trust is just deficient. They are not believing them, and everybody is kind of trying to wait and see. And they're also relying on professionals that support them. They tend to trust the professionals more than what they read or listen to in the news. So 1st of January, the new law kicks off. For MSMEs, the bulk of those businesses, so based on the statistics from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Trade, we have 37 million MSMEs. Over 99% of that are micro businesses. And these micro businesses are businesses that have less than 9 employees, you see. And in terms of revenue, I will put their revenues as below 25 million. So for this set of businesses, their tax burden is actually very little, but yet they are worried. And the reason they are worried is because they have not been in the tax net. And when something is new, you're trying to get into the net and you're not trusting the system, and you're also anticipating growth in your business, you are kind of concerned. But I believe strongly that once the system takes effect and they begin to navigate it, those concerns will go away. Now, speaking about the smaller businesses that have less than 50 employees are categorized as smaller businesses. And then in terms of revenue, their revenue has to be typically less than 100 million. So for this set of people too, their tax burden is really minimal in terms of VAT. However, depending on the incorporation vehicle they have used, so let me say they've incorporated as a company, then for them, if their revenues are less than 100 million, they really do not have CIT burden, which is company income tax burden. However, as individuals, they will need to file and remit their taxes to the state where they are residents. So that is really the only tax burden that these micro and small businesses will worry about. Speaking of the medium-sized businesses, these are really like the big elephants, right? Once your revenue is above 100 million, you're expected to comply. So it's this set of businesses that should actually be concerned about their level of compliance, and we have been engaging, and there has been assessment for some of this business, and has been roadmap on how they can optimize and also improve their compliance framework. And based on the statistics I mentioned before, 37 million, 36 are micro businesses, about 64 million small businesses. Then we just have 4,000 medium-sized businesses. So you see the disparity between these 3 categories that were put together that we call micro, small, and medium. So it's only about 4,000 businesses that really needs to do an impact assessment. And that's what they really need to do to see which of the taxes they haven't been compliant, identify the gap basically, and then create a plan for boosting and enhancing compliance.
All right, so, in trying to, enhance compliance, for the medium businesses, do you think it will cost them more to get, the education they need, the right consultants to help them, navigate this process? Should they put a budget together for that?
So interestingly, there's been a lot of resources out there, but people prefer to have one-on-one, because when you consume general content, it's really not as helpful, especially when you're not a professional. So most of the firms that have interacted with have free consultation. At least the very first consultation that you have is usually would be free, which they call tax health check. They really just want to check what your compliance levels have been. So it usually would be free. So I would encourage medium-sized businesses to assess those health checks, because after the health check, you're given what you should do. And what you should do, most of those things are actually things you can do for yourself. For instance, file your monthly VAT returns. It's really how much have you sold, and then go to the portal where it has been designated and file those returns. So there are easy things that have been doing. Even the institution, the Nigerian Revenue Service, as it's be called from tomorrow, also have free resources across the social media channels, even on the portal itself, that can help. Then professional institutions like the ICANN and the CIT have also been running some educational activities just also to ramp up capacity, but these are never enough. One thing is we have medium and small size firms, apart from the very big firms. Those other firms are usually more affordable. So beyond the free health check, they are more willing, and their fees, this small business, they definitely need to create a budget, but I don't think it's something that will be too much to pay, so they really need to have somebody handhold it, because I understand the fears that they face.
Thank you so much for that. Definitely we're all counting down. Definitely 2026 is looking like it'll be a very, very interesting year. So many things are happening or starting on the 1st of January, 2026. But what are you seeing for access to finance, for most of these MSMEs in 2026?
Interestingly, the government and a lot of institutions are willing to provide funding. But one thing that has limited access to these funds is formalization, lack of records. And that is where we also come in as professionals, letting these entrepreneurs and founders know that they need to keep records. First, you need to separate your personal affairs from your business affairs. And that is why you actually need to incorporate a business. So you could do a sole proprietorship, right? You could just do a limited liability company, and then make sure you open a bank account and put all of your business cash flows in there, then keep records. So you could keep records. Manual records are not really reliable. I know that's the age-long one that everybody likes to do. But now that's where digitalization comes into space. Right now, there are many free tools. At least the very first, most of the licenses, they give you some basic access on free tools that you can use. There are many of them. I wouldn't like to mention them, but there are quite many, and we are partners to such businesses. So what those businesses can do is to use some of these tools, right? If you permit me to mention, I could just mention any one of them for people listening, to just track their records on their mobile phones. And then another one thing they can do is from your bank account, you can actually use that to track records. So when you make payments, make sure that you're writing what that payment is for. When inflows are coming in, try and enlighten your customers to put the right descriptions on the payments. When they're making payments, if the inflows are not for business, or maybe they are reimbursements, that's one area that usually causes a lot of issues. Ensure that they describe it as such so that they will not be called income. So separate your affairs, keep records, and then keep source documents. So source documents are invoices and receipts that can substantiate your business transactions, because the taxman would not believe your record as much, but they rather would believe more evidences from third parties that have interacted with your business. And with the e-invoicing coming on board as well, although that is for large organizations with 5 billion naira revenue. However, some of these small businesses actually even provide services for these people. So somehow there'll be a third-party audit trail that the government can also use to know what's going on in these small businesses.
Right. So much.
And even,
yes, so much to unpack there, but we've run out of time. But I guess at this point, when you're making those payments or receiving payments, it's not by writing, taxman, don't touch my money, that will save you.
No.
Fantastic. All right, we'll
Not
continue the
at all.
conversation. Thank you so much for helping us unpack this. We've run out of time now. Bianuju will be Onyekure. She's the Chief Financial Officer, Manifold Computers Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your day with us, and I'll see you in 2026.
Thank you, Ladi.
Thank you. All right, very interesting conversation there, and everyone's counting down, at this point. But let's look at the markets quickly, starting with the top 10 global stock markets for Africa. Top 10 African stock markets in 2025. We see Malawi, they're topping there, 259% delivered this year for investors. Then we see Ghana coming in second place, 79.1%. That's the index right there. Then Zambia comes in 63%, the Lusaka All Share. And then we see Nigeria coming in here. That's the NGX at 50.63%. That's, from yesterday's close. We'll see what that changes to for today's close. Then all the way, number 9, Kenya. The Nairobi All Share Exchange, 24.1%. Let's get a quick check now on global. That's the global side of things. See the top 10 global stock markets. South Korea is leading there, 73%. South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, 66.1%. Spain, 61.8%. So this year-to-date performances for these indexes, and we see Nigeria coming in at number 5. That's according to yesterday's close again. So yeah, so much to unpack, with these markets. The last trading day, but let's take it on to Europe now. Let's get a check on what's playing out in Europe as 2025 is almost over. Now we have Lars Holter. Talk to us, Lars. What's playing out right there in Europe?
Thanks for having me. It's true, we've been having discussions over fireworks for a few years now, and the tone is getting rougher. Here's the thing. In Germany, the last night of the year is traditionally the only night where people can have fireworks. Throughout the year, you might see great public firework displays, sometimes at special events, but New Year's Eve is the one time where regular people can fire them off in the streets, in their gardens and parks. And for millions, this is a cherished tradition. Not for me, to be quite honest. I don't care much about it, but millions do. And it's good business as well. Last year, people spent almost 200 million euros on fireworks. And as you might have guessed, fireworks companies make some 90% of their entire business around that one night a year.
Right, we do love the fireworks there. But what are these discussions? How are they going to be kept alive at this point?
Because we got a lot more aware of the downside of fireworks. There is obviously the environmental impact. There is trash. Some of it gets picked up in the days after the holiday, but parts of fireworks are just getting washed into the sewage system, or they're rotting away, hidden in the grass. There's also the pollution with fine dust. There's whatever gets into the drinking water. And then dog owners, for example, know how their animals are getting into a panic every year over the noise. Seniors are having problems with it as well, but even worse, especially in some of the bigger cities, fireworks have just been getting out of hand. People making their own, which is of course illegal, and many are overdoing it, packing fireworks almost like bombs and setting them up, damaging buildings sometimes. Every year, a handful of people get killed by fireworks, hundreds get injured across the country, and more police is always needed to keep everything in check. That too, of course, costs a lot of money, and people are just getting more aware of it, wondering if the tradition is worth keeping up.
So what will the future bring?
Well, this year we're still seeing fireworks more or less the way we've always had them, but the Secretary of the Interior has now brought up a fireworks ban, and that is after police had launched such an initiative and collected signatures nationwide. Many cities have also been experimenting with alternatives, sending up drones in elaborate formations and displays. And we might be seeing some of this kind of high-tech entertainment incorporated in the New Year's celebrations in Berlin and in Hamburg and some other larger cities. Now, the plus side here would be that we're not killing off an industry. In an ideal world, companies would just adapt their services, do less traditional fireworks, maybe send up drones or come up with other ideas, and we'd still have celebrations up and running, but with less of a downside.
All right, thank you so much, Lars Walter, there for the details of what's playing out in Europe. Thank you. All right, so let's get a check now what's playing out in the crypto market. We'll see some of the top stories there. Dubai investor loses about 1 million dirham in a crypto scam. A court of appeal right there sentenced 2 Asian men to 3 months in prison and ordering them to jointly repay the 1 million dirham there after convicting them of defrauding a European investor in a sham cryptocurrency transaction. The court also ordered their deportation after serving their sentences. Now, see, Bitwise, they filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission for 11 single token strategy crypto ETFs. So we're still seeing the applications for ETFs growing right there. Then Cardano founder is saying that Gemini lost over $70 million by not listing Cardano. That's with the ticker ADA there. His saying that for not listing this token, most of them, they've lost their revenue they would have made from investors, trading as the Cardano ticker there. But, definitely looking at the crypto market for the year, it's down, at this point, and we'll see if, 2026, brings a better trade there for most of investors in the crypto market. Or maybe some other altcoins did well, but who knows? At this point, we'll get you a list of all of those ones that have performed well. Well, thanks for watching Business Incorporated today. I'm Laddie Williams, and it's been great sharing 2025 with you. I'll see you in 2026.